Riverside.
With the sound of that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It's the Fourth and One podcast, the worstest podcast on the interwebs, live from Lidditz in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. As always, it's your boy, Fancy Trash Can, sitting next to Captain Boring. Both getting absolutely, we'll say the nice version of it, handled, bodied by seasonal allergies, so we both sound like we have tampons up our noses.
This isn't allergies. I think this is a full-blown I don't know, cold that I have. I just had one 6 weeks ago, so what goes around, comes around, goes around, comes around, goes back around.
All right, Justin, calm down.
It's 149 days until college football.
Hey, look, he actually has it down this week.
Yeah, I just pulled it up, actually. And then also spring football is going on right now as well. A bunch of spring games, including Michigan this Saturday, the 1st of April.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm snacking on air right now.
You're snacking on air. You know what? Everyone needs to snack from time to time. Did you see how much Bronny James is making in NIL?
No, is it a lot?
Well, why don't you guess?
5.5
million?
Yeah.
Oh, that's decently close. 7.2.
That's ridiculous.
You know the next closest person?
It's some football player, I would assume.
It is
like
a football
Quinn
player.
Ewers or something like that. Someone with a
right school, wrong player.
right school, wrong play. Who's it? Oh, Bijan Robinson.
Nope.
I don't know that actually.
Arch Manning.
Oh, duh.
So LeBron James making 7.2. Arch Manning making 3.7. $4 million less than Bronny James. And do you know who number 3 is? Of course you don't, but
Well,
you'll never get it. Livy Dune.
really? Is that the LSU gymnast?
Gymnast, yes. She's making 3.4. She's the only female athlete in the top 10. Then Mickey Williams, 3.3. Caleb Williams, which actually kind of shocked me. He's only making 2.6 as the USC quarterback out there in LA. Travis Hunter, 1.7. Shadur Sanders, 1.5. So Colorado's got 2. Drake May, the quarterback for North Carolina, 1.5. Bo Nix, quarterback of Oregon, 1.5. And Hansel Emmanuel, I don't know who that is. I would assume he looks tall, so I'm going to go with basketball player, 1.4.
Hansel Emmanuel is a basketball player. He plays for Northwestern State.
So
he's from the Dominican Republic. He's 6'6".
Okay. All right. This is just everyone's friendly reminder that people are getting paid way more. 18-year-old kids are getting paid way more than you to do far less.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
What are you snacking on?
It's some peanut butter chocolate trail mix that my wife got me for my birthday.
Nice.
That I forgot that I left up here a bunch of times.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's excellent stuff right there. All right, what do you want to get into?
I mean, I don't know. Penn State's basketball coach, the first time Penn State has had a good basketball team in forever, left to take a job at Notre Dame, so they got VCU's basketball coach. Straightened up on that. That was fun.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah.
I have to stick it to my in-laws. Hold on.
Okay.
I gotta blow my nose.
All right, you blow your nose.
All right, sticking it to my in-laws.
Yep.
So, for the 18th year in a row, Penn State men's wrestling. I don't know if there's female wrestling. I'm assuming. Penn State men's wrestling won the national championship again.
Oh, okay.
So good, Penn State. Good job, guys. You're good at something at least.
It's nothing important.
But guess who was named the wrestler of the year in the NCAA?
Their heavyweight wrestler?
You're close because you got the same notification I did. It's the Michigan heavyweight.
All right.
Who won the heavyweight?
He beat him in the heavyweight class and then at nationals.
He went unbeaten and then won the Big Tens and won and won nationals. So, just had to stick it because, Penn State can't have nice things ever.
So, why don't we get into some springtime college football team questions? How about that?
Good. There is an interesting article here that there's a hearing today, it looks like, about the NIL chaos that's going on in college sports.
Yeah. Well, did you see that
the chairman of the subcommittee on innovation, data, and commerce.
Did you see that colleges and sports betting partnerships are now prohibited?
No,
so I
did
guess
not.
Like the University of Colorado and one other university, they had like promotions with certain online sports gambling for like free bets or risk-free bets. And now that is deemed inappropriate, and so that's not allowed to happen.
Is that an NCAA rule or like a law?
No, I think it's an NCAA rule, yeah.
Yeah, that checks out.
Well, which is good because it's at least some form of regulation. I mean, they're still not regulating the right things or in the right direction. Or, I mean, this is in the right direction, but at least they're not letting college. I mean, as soon as you partner with a sports betting app or website or whatever, that's a slippery slope because now we're one step away from fixing games now.
So, yes. Here's a very interesting point. Remember what my call was, Micaiah, about NIL? Maybe this was 3 months ago.
What, in 18 months that it'll be business? No.
The NCAA is either going to go one of two ways. They will either be employed as employees or they're going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're employees. Apparently, I didn't know this, there was a lawsuit being heard in our state. And one of the people who was on the committee today down in Washington is the Patriot League commissioner. The Patriot League, and I have to double check this.
That's like Lehigh and
yes,
Bucknell and all them, right?
It is Lehigh, Lafayette, Bucknell, Army, Holy Cross, Boston University, Colgate, Loyola, Virginia, American University, and Navy. Obviously,
in what sport? Basketball?
In other sports besides football.
Okay.
University of. Yeah, there are some other ones as well. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, American, Army, Boston, Loyola, and Navy do not play football. FCS football for them. So. Georgetown and Fordham. Anyway, does not matter. So it's a Pennsylvania-based conference.
Okay.
The Patriot League is.
Yep.
The lawsuit is by the National Labor Relations Board. That would, if passed, would make college D1 athletes be treated as employee, and they would have to be paid at least federal minimum wage, which is currently $7.25 an hour. I believe it hasn't gone up. And most likely, it would unionize them and most likely do anything. So, when I'm right,
I mean, congratulations for you being right, but I mean that's
being right.
That's a steep slope to me because as soon as you make them, then colleges, as you said, are going to have to separate the sports from the academics because now they're no longer for profit. Either that or the government's going to do something real fishy and make it, and they're going to find loopholes for these colleges.
I mean, yeah, I think. At the end of the day, it's going to morph into something a lot like, I hate to bring this up, but it's been around for 250 plus years, odd years, is soccer or football in England, where you had a bunch of teams that just got put money into, and so it turned out to be, the Man Cities, the Chelseas, Man Uniteds, that sort of stuff. Then you had a bunch of teams. These were just guys playing in 1880. Just out on Sunday after church. They were just playing. They wore the same matching uniforms and did weird things. And that's probably what it's going to turn into is some of them, like the Ivy League is a great example, will just continue to have college athletics, but no money involved, the least amount of money possible involved in college athletics for them. Or places like the Patriot League or Division III schools, that have the least money possible, people just doing it for the love of the game. And then you're going to have the Michigan Wolverines football team who brings in $100,000 every month and brings in $100 million every year, sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a storyline that obviously on this podcast we'll keep you all apprised and abreast of. I don't even know if that's a word or if I just made up a word.
No,
okay.
you actually used it in the correct context
all
as
right,
well.
Great. Well, I didn't know what illustrated was, so it's hit or miss. Let's talk some spring football because I just typed in some top spring football storylines, and this was SEC spring football. Is anyone's seat hotter in college football than Jimbo Fisher's?
Okay, well, I would have to look. The answer to your question is yes. No. In the SEC, no. In college football, maybe. I think he's he's one of the hottest seats. He's at least top 3.
Who would be hotter than him? So he just had now. Granted, I've been making this argument to all the Texas A&M people that I know. When you have the best overall recruiting class, which he did, those players are not going to produce for 2 to 3 years. So those players will only now start getting on the field this year. He went 5-7 last year. They're paying him $10 million. It's all guaranteed. So some booster's going to have to shell out a whole heck of a lot of money if they want to run him out of town. But you went 5-7. You missed a bowl game. Now you do have Aniyah Smith coming back, your wide receiver, but you have to figure out the quarterback position and that is a position for Jimbo Fisher that he historically has been the whisperer of. He had Jameis at Florida State. He had some other quarterbacks where his offense just makes things better. Now, I do think he is giving up play calling duties. That's right. Bobby Petrino is going to come in as the offensive coordinator. So that should make this offense more exciting. My fear is that they're going to go 8-5 and then run him out of town. And I don't think you go from 5-7 to 12-1 or 11-1 or 10-2 like that.
What was their record last year? I forget.
5-7 if you were paying attention to anything I just said.
I was looking up their rankings and their transfer rankings. 24/7 does both now. They do their transfer rankings and their recruiting rankings. For every 4-star that left in the transfer window, they haven't had a 4-star leave this year. They've actually brought in a 4-star this year. I'm looking right now. He transferred out. Sorry, they did bring in a corner,
Tony Grimes from North Carolina.
Yeah, they lost another 4-star who went to USC of all places. That's what I found funny. Anthony Lucas, a defensive lineman.
But correct me if I'm wrong. This kind of feels like it for Jimbo Fisher. He either pulls off a miraculous 10-2 season and beats Alabama.
I think he has to. He has to show something. I don't think a 10-2 season is going to do it for you. You have to be Bama, and you almost have to be like an LSU, where if you lose an early game and then you win a bunch of games and then you beat Bama and people forget, and then you kind of fall off at the end and you don't finish. But I feel like he has to beat Alabama. You have to. Yeah, I think that's the biggest splash you can make is Alabama, and I think on top of that, I think it has to feel a lot like Alabama did last year, where you were kind of going, well, should they be in the playoff with 2 losses? Should that be the first 2-loss playoff team? Well, should we put them in over TCU? Sort of that has to be the question.
Well, speaking of, I feel like if he doesn't beat Alabama this year, the boosters are going to have a problem because let's just flip over to Alabama. 2 new coordinators. Offense, Tommy Rees is coming down from Notre Dame. Kevin Steele, this is his 3rd stint under Alabama. He's breaking in a new quarterback because Bryce Young is gone. Will Anderson is gone. their lack of explosive wide receivers was a problem for them last year that Bryce Young covered up very heavily, and they've had explosive wide receivers for the better part of a half decade, and last year was really when it showed. So if you can't beat Alabama, who's breaking in a new starting quarterback, who necessarily doesn't have the explosive playmakers on the outside, Jamar Gibbs was a transfer in from Georgia Tech, and he left for the NFL draft. So you're breaking in a new running back, new defensive end, new quarterback, and you're still bringing along your skill positions. If you're A&M, this is probably your best shot, I would say.
Well, as far as Alabama goes, but you have to remember, this is my question, right? And this kind of goes to show you, who has the most upside of those second-tier SEC teams, right? Because first, Tier 1, S tier for the kids. Tier 1 is Alabama, Georgia. I think Georgia has proven themselves into that first tier of college football.
But would you even put Alabama there? I wouldn't put Alabama there.
I would put Alabama the same way I would put New England 2 years post Tom Brady. You put them there, even though they're not playing like it right now, because they've been there. The year after that, nah, you're not top flight anymore. So I
feel like that was last year. You would do that.
But weren't they in the national championship the year before that, Micaiah?
Yeah, they won it the year before that.
How are you going to kick them out a year after they won the national championship?
Oh, wait, no.
Do I have to really pull this up?
No, Georgia won. No, Georgia beat them in the national. They were in the national.
But they were in the national championship, and they won it the year prior.
And I did pick them last year to finish undefeated and be the national champion. You picked them last year to.
You pick them to steamroll every human being in front of them.
So if you're looking for the second tier teams,
who has the most upside? Because the question is, can you not beat Alabama? We know how to beat Alabama. Georgia's done it now. Georgia's handled that. Who did they lose to? Georgia and LSU?
Tennessee and LSU.
Tennessee and LSU.
Speaking of,
we can do it.
But I think the answer is right there for your second tier is LSU right there. Jaden Daniels is coming back at quarterback.
Yep.
The transfer from they played true freshman Emory Jones. So they're going to have more depth along the offensive line. He wants to run the ball. They have LSU was wiped out, which makes. They have a Texas A&M transfer, Denver Harris, key addition, Syracuse transfer, Darian Chestnut, and Ohio State transfer, J.K. Johnson to the secondary. So that defense is going to be even more helped out. I'm honestly waiting for Arkansas to kind of pop off. This would be their year with fifth-year senior and KJ Jefferson at quarterback coming back. But Arkansas's problem has been their defense.
Arkansas's problem has been that they're Arkansas. Jerry Jones should go spend money on Arkansas. He'll have a better.
I think Jerry Jones spends a pretty penny at Arkansas.
He'll have a better time winning than with the Cowboys.
So, but I think that the answer right there is LSU. I would also watch out for Auburn. If you remember, Hugh Freeze came over from Liberty.
Freeze, dude.
But
it's Hugh Freeze.
He's the only coach. Hugh Freeze is the only coach in the last decade to beat Saban in back-to-back years.
Yeah, great. So you're going to go 6-7 or 7-6 with a win against Alabama.
But
he needs
Auburn
3 years to turn that program around.
You and me, we argued for the head coach.
Billy Napier?
No, the old Auburn head coach. What was it? Scott Henson? No, that's the guy,
literally last year's head coach.
Yeah,
it starts with an S. You're right about
that. Auburn was a lot better than people give them credit. Those games that they all lost last year were very close. So I think if you just bring Freeze in, who knows the SEC, he's got a high kind of prolific style offense, kind of pass the ball around.
Brian
Harsin, thank you. Brian Harsin wasn't a terrible coach. Hugh Freeze, though, is more of an SEC quote unquote coach than Brian Harsin. I think. Listen, I'm not saying he's going to win the SEC West or even the SEC, but I think that an 8-4 season is not off the table with a win against Bama or he's got to beat someone in the West. You got to beat LSU. You got to beat Arkansas, Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. I think he wins 2 out of those 5 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He wins 2 out of those 6 games.
All right, we're here anyway. Let's look at Auburn's 2023.
I gotta get a tissue. You
you're
do
good.
that.
All right, Auburn's 2023 football schedule. Makai's not here to hear this, so they start out with UMass. That's a win. Auburn. They start out with cupcakes. UMass, Cal, Samford. Not Stanford, Samford. UMass, Cal, Samford. So 3-0 going into week number 4 or 3, however you want to look at it, against Texas A&M. We're going to find out real soon with Auburn how good Hugh Freeze is.
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of that. What was his first? What was his out of
UMass,
conference?
Cal, and Samford.
So that
Not
should
Stanford, Samford.
So that should be win-win-win.
Correct. Then you're going to find out exactly how good he is because he has A&M, Georgia, LSU.
See, but I think he gets one. I think he gets 1, if not 2 of those.
Statistically, he has to get one of those. The question is, can he get 2 of them? Right?
Well, I don't think he's getting Georgia.
So I think that week number 3 game, Auburn versus Texas A&M, that's going to be, or 4, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's going to be the question. If he can beat Texas A&M, that lets you know Jimbo Fisher's fired. He might be fired the week after that. If he loses the game to Auburn,
Yeah.
he might be fired the week after that.
No, that's a good point. That might be Jimbo's last game. Yeah.
And which makes me think, yes, he has the hottest seat. To answer your question earlier, he has the hottest seat in college football right now. And then he has Georgia. Can Georgia retool? Stetson Bennett's not there anymore, right? Or does he have one more year?
Right, yeah. So Stetson Bennett, he was walk-on, so they're either going to go to Carson Beck, who's a redshirt junior, or redshirt sophomore Brock Vandegrift.
So do they have the post-captain hangover? That's the question.
That's a good way to point that, because the talent's always going to be there, right? It's just whether or not the leadership's going to be there.
The question is not the talent for Georgia. So I think you're right. I like LSU in the SEC West this year. I think them going back to back is not it's not a leap in judgment. It's not a foregone conclusion either. But that's because you look at the SEC West, which I'm looking at here. Sorry, I have it pulled up here.
It's very winnable, especially with Bama replacing a Heisman Trophy winner, a Heisman Trophy finalist
They always
in Bryce Young,
people.
Will Anderson. But again, my problem is that last year I felt like Alabama was trying to play an air raid system with the offensive personnel of Michigan, which is to line it up and run the ball down your throat.
So who did they bring in again at offensive coordinator?
Tommy Rees, which at Notre Dame, that's what he wants to do. So now I'm thinking that Nick Saban is like, we don't have the explosive weapons on the outside, so we got to go back to running the football. But I think he's a year too late. The time to do that was with Jahmyr Gibbs last year, and now you're going to have a brand new running back.
He brought in 9 5-star recruits, Micaiah.
I understand
4-stars.
I understand that Alabama retool and reloaded.
5-star running back.
But the leadership is
5-star
gone.
wide receiver.
Leadership
5-star
is gone.
4-star QB. But is it? Because the players were never the leadership on that team. The players have never been leadership.
But in recent years, it has been. Let's go back. In recent years, you had Jalen Hurts, you had Tua, you had Bryce, you had Will Anderson, you had Jordan Battle in the secondary.
Yeah, but you don't know who's going to step up on the defense.
No,
side.
you're right. You're right. I don't. But what I'm saying is the offensive leadership. Are you to tell me, and I'm to trust, that a brand new quarterback, running back, and group of wide receivers are going to bring in the leadership on offense to make sure that this thing, when it's not headed in the right direction, veers it back on? Because let's not forget, Tommy Rees is a disciple of Brian Kelly. And we saw this last year with Marcus Freeman. When things weren't going well for Notre Dame, he was screaming and he was blue in the face. And that's a Brian Kelly thing. Now he's since kind of backed off of that. But Tommy Rees, I just feel like in this age of player empowerment, if you start yelling at these 5 stars, you're going to weed out a lot of the bad ones, which is fine, which helps build and strengthen your program, but that doesn't help you this year. It'll help you next year and the year after, but it doesn't help you this year.
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Alabama's going to lose. If they go 10-2 again this season, it won't surprise me. What do you think Alabama's – let's look at Alabama.
But I really like your LSU pick. I think LSU is very – listen, they were a win away last year against A&M from making the – well, no, they did make the SEC championship game. But they were – if they hadn't had lost to A&M in their final regular season game, they would have had a shot at the playoff had they beaten Georgia, which Georgia just mauled them in the SEC.
I'm seeing if I can't get an over-under. I think it's going to be about 10 games again for Alabama. If I'm going to put it on it, it's going to be another 10 games. It's probably going to be 10.5, which is what it was last year.
How?
So can they win 11 games?
No. I think they're 10-2 again.
I agree with you. I don't.
Who's on their schedule? Do you have that up?
They're either going to be 10-2 or they're going to go 13-0. I'm pulling it up.
The sleeper in the East for me, I think, is Florida. I know that they just lost Anthony Richardson, who's shooting up draft boards with what he did at the Combine. So Alabama's. So here we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was Middle Tennessee.
Win.
Texas again at home this time though.
I'm gonna go loss.
Well, we know. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I think it was yesterday even. Had Quinn Ewers not gotten injured, that was a win for Texas.
100%. Bryce Young had to bail them out. I mean, we were driving up to the Michigan game, and they were a punt away from giving the ball back to Texas, and losing the game. And then Bryce Young on a third down play scrambled and got a first down. They kicked a field goal and they won the game.
Is Arch Manning eligible this year, or is he coming back next year?
And he's going to compete with Quinn Ewers at quarterback.
Immediately.
Well,
here's the deal.
The name does.
Here's the issue with. We'll get to Texas later. South Florida, that's their 3 non-conference at the beginning. Then Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Arkansas. They play Chattanooga as their cupcake division. They finish with Auburn. I missed a few other ones in there, like Kentucky, LSU.
So I think that there's a real possibility they lose to Texas.
Yeah.
Because I think Texas is finally gonna one of these years I'm gonna say Texas is gonna be a grown up and they're actually gonna prove me right. So I think that this is the year. Texas is actually gonna be a grown up and actually gonna win some games.
The only reason that Texas might lose this game is because it's not at home.
But they have most of their big games at home. They have Ole Miss at home. They have Arkansas and Tennessee at home, and LSU at home. Those are 3.
Look who they're at. You're missing a big, huge away game there.
I understand that they're
assuming their head coach isn't fired by then.
But that's the thing. I'm not trusting A&M to beat Bama.
Except that's the last person to beat them away. It's in College Station. That's when they lost.
The last person to beat them away was Tennessee. They did not.
Well,
and LSU.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying.
I do.
So, yeah, I don't know.
That's a 4-week stretch for Alabama where we're going to learn out whether they're going to go 10-2 or they're going to go 11-1 because they have A&M on the road. Then it's 3 home games against good, quality, tough opponents. Arkansas, Tennessee. Tennessee's going to come in there all liquored up and just ready to rumble again. You can't tell me that this Tennessee high-flying offense that was under Hendon Hooker and now has the Michigan transfer, Joe Milton, is going to be anything less than 33 points a game.
Sure. I'm wondering, so Mississippi State was 3rd last year, since we're talking about SEC West, before we move over to the East.
Mississippi State, though, Mike Leach passed away, R.I.P., big man, and they hired a defensive coordinator, so I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I don't like it either. So, Ole Miss was 4. Then Arkansas.
No,
Sorry, are you expecting Auburn and Texas A&M? They have to jump. They have to be in 3 and 4. And then you're looking at Alabama going,
Listen, on paper, here are the potential losses to me for Alabama.
Yeah.
It's Texas in week 2, Ole Miss in week 4, Arkansas in week 7, Tennessee, and LSU. Kentucky, like Auburn, again, rebuilding, again, 8 and 4. I think it'll be an interesting game with Auburn to finish the season. But Tennessee has all the confidence in the world. Arkansas always plays with this confidence and has a fifth-year senior as starting quarterback. And then LSU, Simeon, I'm with you. I think they're my pick to win the West. So would it shock me if we got to the end of the season and Alabama was 8 and 4? No, because that schedule's really rough and everything I just laid out previously with the new quarterback, running back, and group of wide receivers and that schedule. But would it also shock me if they go 11 and 1 with their only loss to, I don't know, pick someone, a Texas A&M, Mississippi State, they trip up somewhere along the way,
a coin,
a Kentucky? Also no. But I do think that this is the start of the decline of Alabama football. At least when they had to rebuild in the past, they were still the best team in their conference. They're no longer the best team in their conference.
That's the issue. That's the main issue. That's your only point, really, that you should be. They're no longer the best team in their conference, let alone their division.
All right, well then let's keep that in mind when we preview these conferences kind of over the summer.
Don't worry, we'll forget. Let's move on to the question mark I have in the East, because we're on the SEC. We might as well stay there.
Yeah, let's just finish out the podcast here. Sure.
You're going to do... Okay, so Georgia 4 gone? 15-game win streak, by the way, Georgia has.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, Tennessee, who lost their main wide receiver, right? They still have Hendon Hooker at quarterback, but they lost...
No, Hendon Hooker left for the draft. They have Joe Milton now.
Okay.
They also lost Jalen Hyatt.
Why do I know that, Neil?
He started the 2020 season for Michigan.
That's right. Oh, yeah, I really liked him.
Before Cade McNamara took his job.
Yeah.
And then before JJ took his job.
That could go sideways south for them. Okay, so I'm going to assume Tennessee's going back to like 6 and 7.
I don't think so, but I do think that they take... Listen, it was magical last year what they did, and they pulled off some really close wins. Yeah. And they played they blew out LSU. LSU was just coming off of a few losses, and Simeon, I think we were doing the live stream that day. And like the opening kickoff, it like bounced off a player and it was a fumble, and it was just all downhill from there. And once Tennessee jumps on you, they really don't. But I think it's a 9-3 season for Tennessee. A 9-3, 8-4.
I think that's fair.
But who's your surprise team in the East?
South Carolina.
Dude, I was just about to say that. With the way they finished the season last year and Shane Beamer, yep.
Here's the issue. First of all, they got the right coach. They got the right quarterback. Shout out to Spencer Rattler for bouncing back and rebranding.
Yeah, absolutely.
They start off with North Carolina, neutral in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay. They hit Furman up at home. Now, they play their rivalry game, the South Carolina rivalry game at the end of the year.
Against Clemson.
So they start immediately. Georgia, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Florida. Those are their first 4 conference games. They have a very hard record. Then Missouri, Texas A&M, assuming their head coach still has a job. Then they get the rest. Then they get Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Kentucky is a question mark for me. I don't think they're going to bounce back. And then they hit Clemson, who's going to be... they're probably going to bounce back. There's no way they're not. The way that they finished the season last year...
Clemson under Cade Klubnik, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, the way they finished the season last year, that's going to be a nasty game. Let's say somehow, some way, there's no way that they don't... I think they pick up 1 or 2 L's. We'll see how good of a coach Shane Bieber is. I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what's gonna. If they somehow do not pick up 2 L's, I think Georgia, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M. I don't think they're winning the Georgia game. But if somehow they beat all of those teams and you get down to Clemson,
Yeah.
and you're looking, and I know, Simeon, you're about to say this, but you're looking at a best, worst to first sort of team.
I think you're right, but I think
I don't think they're going to.
it all hinges on what version of Spencer Rattler are we going to get.
100%.
Because if
How is he
Spencer
maturing this year?
Because if Spencer Rattler is going to be the 5-star Oklahoma freshman year Spencer Rattler, great, wonderful. South Carolina is going to be in a lot of these games, and they might only lose 1 or 2 games, as Simeon said. Again, I don't think that they get Georgia. Tennessee's interesting, and coin flip with all the rest of them. But if we're going to get Spencer Rattler from the first half of South Carolina's season last year, or when he got outplayed by Caleb Williams and then benched for Caleb Williams in his sophomore season, then they're 8-4.
Is he a redshirt senior?
Or 7-5. I think he's a true senior. So South Carolina is a dark horse, but it's all going to depend on the right
Redshirt junior.
Redshirt junior. It's all going to depend on the right arm of Spencer Rattler.
Do you want to hear what his major is? Sorry, I just looked it up. I don't know how they have this information, but they have this information.
What?
This is my favorite. Do you want to see what the most majoring in college football?
Public relations.
Interdisciplinary studies.
Oh, which means what?
You're taking enough credits to technically be enrolled
great.
at the school.
Great. Just real quick, can we talk about Georgia's schedule? We're going to hear it all year next year how Michigan's schedule is weak. Here's Georgia's schedule. UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB. Those are all at home. Then they're at Auburn, home Kentucky, at Vanderbilt, who is just right now the doormat of the SEC football program. Then they're home against Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, and at Georgia Tech, who Georgia Tech's been the walking mat of the ACC. So what exactly is Georgia supposed to be scared of breaking in a whole new? Tennessee, okay, they don't have them until the end of the year. Florida's at home. They're at Auburn, which that Hugh Freeze might be able to get them there. Who is exactly on their schedule that's scaring you besides Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn? No one.
No.
So I just want people when they're digging on Michigan's schedule, and listen, it's weak, but for me, that's what I want. I kind of want a weaker out of non-conference schedule.
Guys, it's what Alabama's doing. Alabama has the same exact schedule.
But Alabama's actually getting tougher.
Yeah, but they're
at least they're playing
Texas. They picked up Texas. Let's look at OSU's 23 football schedule, okay? Because I guarantee you, for the love of all things
I
holy,
watched those highlights again from the game from 2022.
They picked up Notre Dame, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations. They're playing the Penguins of Youngstown State and Western Kentucky.
And Notre Dame on the road.
And Notre Dame in South Bend, which they should hand. They just picked up another 5-star, the second best player recruit for next year's recruiting class. But they just picked them up again.
Michigan got the number 1 overall quarterback in that class, though.
Yeah, I know. Because they don't have enough quarterbacks. Dear Lord.
Well, clearly you can never have too much, right?
Yeah, I think don't be surprised if it's like Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, Georgia, Tennessee. Sorry, not Kentucky. Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina.
But you think it's Georgia?
It's hard not to be.
With that schedule and the last
15 games of momentum.
16
15.
technically 16 because they won the national championship. Well, it's 17 because they won the semifinal, they won the national championship, and then went undefeated.
It's hard to beat that unless they come out and just lay an egg against one of these teams.
But South Carolina could then get them early. That's what I'm saying. Like if one of these teams is going to have to get them early before the train gets rolling. I also think Florida is going to be very interesting this year. I don't think that they'll necessarily compete for a natty or even a conference title, but I think Florida is very
They're trending
interesting
in the right direction.
right. They have Graham Mertz from Wisconsin, which I don't think that that's going to work out at all. He'll compete with Jack Miller, who
This is for their quarterback.
who is an Ohio State transfer. So you have two Big Ten quarterbacks competing to play in the SEC. I just don't think that's going to go very well for them long term.
Hey, remember, this is the first year that the Big 12 has an expanded roster. This is the only year that the Big 12 is actually going to have.
No, I think it's going to be next year too, because did Texas and Oklahoma get the early out? I don't think they got the early out.
That sounds like a next pod problem when we cover the Big 12.
Yeah.
So this is Texas' schedule, mind you.
Okay.
Assuming Kansas can be as good as Kansas was last year. That's a question mark.
I think Kansas is a 7-win football team. Sure. Why not?
They have Rice,
Yeah.
Alabama, Wyoming.
Okay, so they're 2-1 or 3-0 at best.
Yeah. Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma, Houston, BYU, Kansas State, TCU, Iowa State, Texas Tech. So, yeah. It's not like they have.
I
the
feel
easiest
bad
schedule.
for Sark because he could beat Bama and then trip up twice as he did last year in conference play to one of these teams.
Fairly. It's not like I don't blame him last year.
I mean, listen, Houston's going to, under Dana Holgerson, Houston's going to put up a buttload of points, and Texas just has this knack on a random Saturday afternoon in a game on ESPN2 that no one's watching to allow 49 points and turn the ball over 5 times. So that wouldn't surprise me at all.
They're playing two of the new schools who have nothing to lose.
Who have
Now,
nothing
granted,
to
get
lose, everything to gain, yeah.
Everything to gain. Granted, they get BYU at home.
They get Houston on the road.
They get Houston
Well,
on the road.
circle that game. My goodness.
But then they're also at TCU, who yes is rebuilding, but no, they only lost their wide receiver, right?
Yan Bijan.
Wasn't Bijan on Texas?
Yeah, Bijan was Texas.
No, I said TCU only lost their wide receiver.
Oh no, they lost Mac.
Right?
TCU basically lost their whole squad.
Oh, so we're gonna see how they do.
No, I think TCU's like a 7-5.
And Iowa State still has Matt Campbell at their coach.
Yeah, I mean Iowa State's
Talk
going to
about a dude who he needs to put up or shut up. There's your first or second raised hot seat in NCAA.
But I don't
Matt
think
Campbell
so
at
because
State.
Iowa State was.
What did he do last year?
Iowa State was Kansas. He has to win 6 games and make a bowl game, and that's it. That's all he's got to do at Iowa State.
He had the magical COVID season, and everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to replace Jim Harbaugh," and then he goes and lays an egg last year.
Okay, well, you were the one calling for him to replace Jim Harbaugh. So
I was. I'm not gonna.
Well, also he had a new quarterback. Like Brock Purdy wasn't on the team last year. He didn't have the
big cock Brock.
Hey, listen, as we get into the summer months and we start previewing these conferences, there are a lot of interesting storylines that are about to go down.
I mean, I'm just looking at the list.
Will a new
the ACC is boring per usual. Just in case anybody cared, besides Miami and Clemson, but that's normally how it goes.
No, here's what's going to happen in Miami. They're going to roll in. They're going to go. Click on Miami's schedule and tell me what the 4th game of the year is.
Okay.
For them, just real quick.
Miami 23 football schedule. Miami, Florida's 23 football schedule.
All right, read it off to me.
What the heck? Hold on.
All right.
Sorry, the links aren't working. So funny enough, they're playing the other Miami.
Of Ohio? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, dear Lord. You know who the 4th game is?
Who?
Temple.
Okay, well, read off their
here's
schedule.
the thing. Miami, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Balloon Cookman.
Okay.
Temple, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Clemson.
Okay, stop and okay. So North Carolina and Clemson. Here's what's going to happen with Miami. They're going to be is Texas A&M on the road or at home?
At home.
Okay, they're going to beat Texas A&M, which puts Jimbo. Turns his
Immediately in the hot seat. Yeah.
immediately on the hot seat. They're going to beat Texas A&M. They're going to win the other games by an average of 27 points, and they're going to run the ball down their throat. Is North Carolina at home or on the road?
North Carolina is at North Carolina.
They're going to walk into North Carolina on national television, Saturday Night Football, mark my words, and lay a giant egg. Then they're going to go to Clemson.
Home.
Then Clemson's going to walk in there, right? Clemson might have a rocky start, but Clemson's going to stroll in there and kick their ass. That's how it's going to go. Everyone's going to be so high on them that they're going to get like a 4-point win over A&M or something in a hard-fought game. They're going to stroll in Saturday Night Football against North Carolina and lay a giant egg on national television, and then Clemson the next week is going to kick their ass. That's exactly how it's going to go. Every year.
He's calling it now. By the way, you want to talk about someone with a cupcake schedule?
Oh.
First 4 games. Duke, Charleston Southern, FAU, Florida State.
Wait, who is that?
Yes.
Clemson.
Yeah.
Listen, Florida State's my sleeper in the ACC.
What?
Yeah.
What did they finish last year?
They finished really well. Their overall record wasn't great, but they finished really, really well.
5-3, 10-3 overall. How do I not remember that?
And because of where their losses came from. So they beat LSU, and then they would lose random. They went on a 3-game losing streak, I think, right?
Probably.
I think they went on a 3-game losing streak, and then they rebounded and won out the rest of the way.
So their first 3 games, they start with LSU. Week 1 of college football, 9-3, they start with LSU.
Where?
Luckily in Tallahassee for them.
Is it actually in Tallahassee? Because it was a neutral site game last year.
Oh, that's a good question.
Click on it.
It says versus, so I would assume.
Well, click on it and see where the game's at.
Camping World Stadium, so it is neutral. That's in Orlando.
But it's in Florida. It's not in. So it's basically a home game.
Yeah,
like, you can't have these neutral sites.
You know those LSU fans, dude.
Well, right, as well as
Go Tigers.
And same can be said with the Florida State fans last year. But when it's a neutral site game in the home state of the home team, get out of here. It is a home game for Florida State, just at a different stadium. But we got some great football early on that a lot of people, we're gonna find out whether Jimbo Fisher is gonna get fired by week 3 or not. We're gonna find out about LSU and Florida State, and we're gonna find out about Clemson pretty early.
The state of Florida, as I said before, besides the fact that they have a discipline problem, the entire state of Florida is either going to be putting up or shutting up this year. The 3 big schools, Florida, Florida State, Miami.
Is that your goal for the podcast this season, just to track the Florida schools and see if the state puts up or shuts up this year?
Well, like you said, I think that one of the beauties about college football is you never know what storylines are going to emerge from them, right? UTSA, the Roadrunners, by the way, lost their 5th-year quarterback, so we don't know what they're going to do this year. Talk about a storyline. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and aren't they in this Fun Belt now?
We'll look it up later. But, like, you never know what's going to happen. Teams like Tennessee last year just come out of nowhere and just drop the balls on the face and teabag you the rest of the season.
They're in the American, UTSA.
Yeah, because the American lost Houston and Cincinnati.
A bunch of others.
So, they're in a new conference. Good for them. But they're the storylines that come out of nowhere, and they make you happy. And Florida has been in the doghouse, been in the basement. Sorry, not doghouse, the basement, since Jameis Winston, since Mr. Eating W's stolen crab legs himself.
Yep.
Won the Heisman Trophy.
That's a good reference.
Thank you. And the question they used in the 90s, there was no questions that Florida and 2000s. I'm still waiting for that documentary. 23 arrests.
Yeah, something like that. A third of the team.
A third of the team was arrested for Florida during the 08-09 season. I'm still waiting for it, and the documentary that would be amazing. We should just make it ourselves. And
what I would like to know is when college football is going to actually put a big time game in week 0 again.
Well, what is week 0?
So week 0 is technically Saturday, August 26th.
So 8/26.
There's
college.
nothing. There's Hawaii, Vanderbilt, San Jose State, USC, Notre Dame, Navy. Okay, that's probably the only watchable game. UMass, North New Mexico State, Ohio, and San Diego State. This is basketball.
Ohio was the Conference USA championship.
Okay, congratulations. They're fighting Brady Hoke. So, what do you want?
That's the Ball State.
What? No, he coaches at San Diego State.
Oh, sorry.
But I remember
he came
a few
from Ball
years.
State.
I remember.
Hey, impressed that I remember what school he came from.
That's fair. I just remember a few years ago when they would put like Miami, Florida. They would put a big time game in week 0 that made it kind of jumpstart the season.
I don't mean to be rude here, but they kind of do. It's just the next day. Sorry, 5 days later.
Thursday.
It's the next week.
On Thursday.
The Nebraska-Minnesota game is a big game.
At
least for the Big Ten.
So here's the thing about Nebraska that I feel. So I feel like this is Nebraska's schedule. They get Minnesota, which I think is a win. They get Colorado, which is a win. Okay, so they get Deion right away, and they're going to beat Deion. Deion's going to win week 1.
That's a rivalry game for them, too.
Yep. Deion's going to win week 1 against TCU, and then Nebraska's going to come into town, and they're going to lose against Nebraska, right? Then they get Northern Illinois. They're going to get Matt ruled. Yeah, that's good. Then they get Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech. I think that they go 3-1, 4-0. I think they're 4-0. Michigan's going to walk into their place, and much like Clemson, is going to kick their ass.
About Nebraska. I thought you were talking about Colorado.
Michigan is just going to. I think Michigan's going to run them over because Nebraska is one of those teams where, because again they're switching coaches.
Yeah.
They're not prepared for the big games. They're not quite there yet. So they're going to have all this hype, especially after beating Deion in week 2 and all that hype. Then Michigan's going to walk into their place. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, and Cole Cabana are going to run for 350 on them. And that defense is going to do what that defense does.
Colorado, that pack, I mean, it's weak now. But if Colorado can go TCU, Nebraska, Colorado State, then they have Oregon, USC. We'll see how good of a coach Deion is, because Deion's going to get NFL calls because it's theoretically, right? He has to beat new Matt Rule, Nebraska. Probably, like you said, you say that to me. That's probably a W. I think he's starting the season 3-0,
and then walk into Oregon. Simeon, the pattern of these teams with new exciting coaches that kind of had some hope at the end of the last season, normally what the pattern goes, and I'm going to educate you here before we sign off.
Colorado didn't have hope at the end.
Okay, that's fine. But they have a new coach. They have all these transfers. They have the 2 best corners in the class transferring in. They get all this hype. They win a few games at the beginning. And then the real season starts, and they get shellacked by someone. So who on Colorado's schedule is going to shellack them?
Well, either Oregon or USC.
I think it happens in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that's also what I'm saying. Okay, so first of all, we can't. It's not like he turned around Jackson State. Jackson State was a middle. They were a middle of the table team, though.
Right.
They weren't bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like you turned them around. So let's go in with a pinch of salt. Okay. Second, if he can go 3-0, we start to give him the side eye. If he can beat Oregon, we go, okay, they're not what they used to be.
He's not beating Oregon.
No, I think the real test for him is going to be USC because I think he can beat Oregon, especially if he's 3-0. That means the stadium's going to be packed because that's their second home game.
But they're at
hyped.
Oregon.
I'm sorry, that was USC. I got my symbols mixed around. They're at Oregon. I don't think Oregon's as good as a team as we think.
No, I think Oregon's problem was they tried to throw the football too much last year when they were winning big. I think Oregon's going to come out and run the football, and I don't think that Colorado's going to be ready to be smacked in the mouth. And even if so, okay, say they get by Oregon, fine, whatever. I don't think they're beating Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams.
That's the question, right? So let's say they get smacked in the mouth and somehow they pull apart. You're going to be immediately challenging their safety, their secondary. You have the best wide receivers and one of the best quarterbacks.
The best quarterback, yeah.
Okay, hold up.
That schedule isn't half bad, though, for Deion.
We're ending on this.
Okay, go ahead.
J.J. McCarthy, Heisman.
Don't hate it.
This has been the 4th and 1 podcast, brought to you by you guys, anchor.fm/4th and 1. Instagram at 4th and 1 podcast. We haven't been posting there, but please go give us a follows. I love you guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks again.
Wash your hands, you filthy animals. God bless. Peace out.